It is indeed. What's up, Reefer Revolutionaries? It's 4:20 in California, and this is Reefer Revolution
Live.
Live.
In terms of marijuana, and legalization, I think that should be a state issue, state by state.
I think in terms of marijuana, too.
Yeah, I'm a states person. I think it should be up to the states, absolutely. You know, I know people that are very, very sick, and for whatever reason, the marijuana really helps them.
Good people don't smoke marijuana.
Well, the good people of America, at least 91% of them, think that some form of legal cannabis might be appropriate. And will that tell the federal government, as in Congress, to vote for legal cannabis this week? Will Congress actually mark up a marijuana bill on the House floor? It seems so. Meanwhile, pot politics, prohibitionists are on it. They're against it. But we know the real ones, the real progressive candidate that is
I'm all
the
in.
best plan.
This is the time to go all in on cannabis.
Yeah, I know.
We're going to legalize marijuana in every state in this country. We're going to expunge the records of those who are arrested for possession of marijuana. What we're also going to do is not allow a handful of corporations to control the marijuana industry. We're going to help those communities, mostly African American and Latino, who have been hit hardest by the war on drugs, to profit when marijuana becomes legal all over this country.
The fact of the matter is, there's not nearly been enough evidence that has been acquired as to whether or not it is a gateway drug. It's a debate, and I want a lot more before I legalize it nationally. I want to make sure we know a lot more about the science.
I want a lot more too.
Talk about the marijuana industry. Let's talk about CBD, right? Like all
whatever
these
you
products,
fucking call
right? Like, that are all of a sudden going to relieve every problem I have because I'm going to rub it all over my body, right? And it's a huge cash cow, this industry. People are making so much money off of selling weed. Meanwhile, generations of folks, in particular black and brown men, are felons for life for doing the same thing.
Good people don't smoke marijuana.
Yeah, that's what you thought there, Attorney General Harris, when you were locking up a few of those people. What's up, Reefer Revolutionaries? I'm Dave Conan. This is indeed Reefer Revolution Live, the show where we spark up, talk about marijuana in the mainstream media, the politics of pot and cannabis care. And when I say we, of course, I mean my partner in all things life and cannabis and dogs and cats and dogs and rainings and everything, Coach Chela.
Hey, babe. Hey, guys. Hey, everybody.
What's going on, Chela? Happy Sunday. Happy Sunday.
Happy Sunday to all y'all. Nice to see you in the chat.
Lots of folks. Vegan Metro, just Phil Britton. Pirate Radio. I looked up the definition of Wall Street. There was a picture of Biden. Yes, indeed. Thank you, Phil Britton, for Welcome back. Haven't seen Phil. MDN Niles also joining us over there on Facebook. Thanks for jumping in over on there, too. We are multi-streaming on Facebook, YouTube. Well, YouTube, of course, here. Facebook, Twitch, DLive. And what's the other one? Periscope. That's it.
Yeah.
Weed TV's down for the moment, but we will be back up there soon. Cannabis Sativa joining us. Mr. Sativa, welcome to the show. Jilly Love in the show. History Buffering.
Holy cannabis oil. We haven't seen you in a minute, but welcome.
Welcome back. It has. We were thinking, where has HCO been?
Where's HCO?
Doug 209, 420, Fred, all these new friends, original friends, Humble Canadian.
Marvis Parvis, welcome.
Marvis Parvis, I'm not sure. Is this your first time on the show, Marvis Parvis? Where are you guys watching from? What are you smoking? Chela, what are we smoking today?
Oh, that's such a great question. We are smoking compliant cannabis.
We are enjoying compliant California
dispensary.
cannabis.
It's, yes, beautiful, sun-grown, organic California cannabis.
Oh, we went with that, huh?
We do love, yes.
Of course. Juniper.
juniper, and where'd all my joints go?
Oh, I spread the one box out because I hadn't gotten into the compliant packaging.
You spread them out. I only have 2 joints.
This, I know. Well, this box is full. See, this is a full box.
Oh,
so
I
this
see.
Is, you see what I'm saying?
Gotcha.
They're all the same, right? Did you get the, you all?
All
I
the
thought
same.
they were all the
Same,
same strain.
It tells you
what strain is this?
It says on the bag.
What?
Sativa.
Sativa. We tell people every week that sativa doesn't mean anything anymore.
No, it does. Throw me the bag or put your glasses on. Orange sherbet.
That's what orange sherbet. Those are 5 $10 joints in compliant California right there, guys.
Yep.
They're about I don't even know if they're even a gram.
They are. They're 0.7.
0.7 after taxes in Los Angeles. $10.
0.7 grams each.
It's a $10 compliant California joint in the largest cannabis market in the world, with 189 legal dispensaries. Versus Tulsa, Oklahoma, which has 262 as a standard.
That's right. Or fun fact, in 1930,
oops, yes,
Harlem had 500.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
500 purveyors. What did they call them?
Peddlers.
Peddlers.
Yes, it was peddlers.
500 peddlers and 500. What was it called? Tea lounge.
Tea pads.
Tea pad.
The Dr. Barry. If Dr. Barry, I'm sure you'll be jumping in here soon, or be listening. But he tweeted out an interesting, just yesterday, I think, over on my Twitter at DC420LA. You can follow me over there, and I follow Dr. Barry in Florida, and he found this great story out of O'Shaughnessy's that basically. It talks about the LaGuardia report. And he says, being up at 5 a.m. sometimes results in fantastic finds. Check out this article that discusses marijuana use in New York City in the 30s.
Dr. Barry's with us.
The LaGuardia report revealed then that what we still know now, the safety of cannabis and the lack of social impact from its use. And this is an awesome article quoting the LaGuardia report, which, of course, was immediately discounted because it said all the things that we know, that it is safe.
All as well.
Everything's cool, and we'll read a little bit from this maybe if we have time. But one particular thing that popped out based on Joe Biden's remarks about the gateway drug principle or theory being on... You good? You good? You need water? You all good?
I'm muted.
You got them muted? Okay, good.
Sorry if I'm not.
Well, we are smoking weed. But okay, so yes, so I tweeted, hey, Joe Biden, the gateway drug theory is long debunked from 1939 to 1944, which is when the LaGuardia report was put together over 5 years. We have been unable to confirm the opinion expressed by some investigators that marijuana smoking is the first step in the use of such drugs as cocaine, morphine, and heroin. It was debunked almost right out of the gate and ignored that it is not, and now proven over and over again and much more scientific. And there is actually, Joe, plenty of evidence that it is not a gateway drug and that the gateway theory is. Joe's living in Joe Biden is a gateway to the 90s. That's what really he is.
He is totally.
He is stuck in a moment of time. Would that make him an amber? He's not quite an amber.
Yeah, maybe.
On the dementia scale. But he's definitely stuck in the 90s, of course, being the proponent of much of those drug laws that created a lot of the problem. And we'll see more of all of those politicians in the afterburn and what they said this week with regards to Kamala Harris, who of course didn't have a problem with locking people up for cannabis crimes in California and other things, did let other drugs slip by and cause much more damage, I'd say. So Joe Biden now we also read that his in this article, as we get into the news, which is what we're going to get into. We should probably get into the news.
That'd be great. I'd love to talk less about Joe Biden.
Less about Joe Biden. It's 4:30. We know we're smoking. We said hello to everybody.
Yeah.
Joe Nunya is in the house. Welcome, Joe Nunya. Welcome, everybody. Phil Britton. Shake sells for around $5 a gram. It's loaded with trichomes, keef, and the good stuff that does not look
like a curated bud.
Like a curated bud. Where is that from, Phil?
Shake.
Oh.
Phil Britton.
In Colorado.
Well,
on a budget, yes.
He was saying, yes, if you're on a budget, ask your dispensary for Shake.
Shake or Smalls.
Small
nugs.
Small nugs here, yeah.
Yeah, we do small nugs in our
that would have been
local dispensaries. But of course, even MedMen, they're having all these job fairs. MedMen has a table every place we go, yet they've just laid off 190 people.
And Ease got rid of a bunch of people, and Flocana got rid of 20% of their staff.
The Green Crush.
It happens.
I guess they overexpanded.
We work in the film and television industry, so hiring and layoffs happen all the time, and it's just part of the ebb and flow of work and work cycle. I'm sure it's going to pick up again.
Well, I'm sure it will, and the taxation will pick up again, because that was a lot of overestimation with regards to taxes being collected.
I think the whole thing's going to get revamped. It has to.
Well, certainly more states and folks that are trying to put together laws are talking about lower taxes. That's for sure, to keep people or get people into this new business, this new industry. And transfer them over from a traditional market. But if what's going on up in Emerald Triangle is any indication, and also, of course, Canada countrywide, with regards to busting farmers markets, Jody Emery basically says, very paraphrasing, that if it's legalized, you shouldn't be busting people at farmers markets for having it or growing it, or that's not real legalization. It's fake legalization. It's a new prohibition because they're not playing the game, and it's apparent up in Canada. It's certainly apparent as the legalization efforts move across the states here in the United States. And California is a bellwether in many ways as to how not to legalize cannabis. The many of the ramifications are obvious in the news, and the news that we speak of is coming out of this little weekly newsletter we put together, Chela and I, on Saturdays, and find all the cannabis news throughout the week that I tweet over, that we find much of the time that I tweet out over at DC420LA on Twitter. I don't know where you tweet, but I do it on something called Twitter. So I break news over there, and then we do a little collection, and we put it out once a week, a Cannabis Chronicle, DC420LA.com. We put it out Saturday evening or Sunday morning, depending on what's going on. And then we pull stories from it to talk about on the show. And of course, the top story this week, coming out of Forbes, Tom Angel just really just sort of slipping into the end of the week news. A lot of like a cannabis news dump at the end of the week this week.
Oh, it was amazing. It was. Saturday night was huge.
And still yet today, the Thailand news coming out. Thailand news coming out today. We're going to talk about, but it looks like we are going to get a vote, or at least a markup, which I guess is a vote on the House floor, or in the committee, rather.
Starting in committee.
A markup in the committee this week, which I'm sure it will move onto the floor. I'm not sure.
I don't know.
But it's supposed to be on Wednesday.
Wednesday
is what sources are saying to Tom Angel, writing in Forbes. And another historic. There's been a couple of historic committee meetings with regards to cannabis this year. They've never happened before. This would be another one. Looks like the safe banking bill is stalled, but it got a markup and moved through. And now it looks like this. We are talking, of course, about Gerald Nadler's Democrat out of New York bill, along with Kamala Harris. Is that correct? co-sponsoring it with
Yes.
which is interesting
In
that
the
she
Senate.
didn't, which is fascinating. She didn't say anything. She was interviewed. We
Weird.
watched that whole Cosmo segment. We'll watch that in the afterburn, but she didn't mention her bill.
Yeah.
When she talked very
Weird.
just there's no you don't believe what she's saying.
Substance, no.
Yeah, she doesn't believe what she's saying.
Really cagey.
How do you not know it's called CBD?
Yeah.
She didn't know the name.
Yeah.
So she's not tuned in. She's not actually tuned into what she doesn't believe it. She didn't believe it.
Right.
She's only just started believing it, or having this position within the last year, essentially. So this is all very new to her, and it's obvious. And she didn't mention the fact that she is part of in the Senate moving the MORE Act, Marijuana Opportunity Reinvestment and Expungement Act, which would deschedule cannabis, unlike Biden, who wants to either put it on Schedule 2 or 3. I'm not sure. Two different sources say, one says that he wants to make it a 2, and I think he said 3 in the video,
out loud
right?
there.
So, of course,
Who knows what he says?
Yeah. So he's, but it would deschedule,
Sometimes he's
remove
confused.
it. It would remove it from the Controlled Substances Act, which would be a law. I mean, so I don't know if I have to see if Bernie is a co-sponsor on this. I'm not sure if he is actually. Double check that. And it would also, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, add a federal tax on it. Is that correct, Chela? A 5% tax?
5%?
Which is low on the scale, considering I think the other legislation that's trying to make its way through ramps up to a 15% perlmutter bill that's going through. Ramps up to a 15% federal
Cannabis Sativa might know more
tax.
details if we are making wrong.
If we are
assumptions.
wrong, or yes, I'm sure he's much more tuned
Or
into.
Phil.
This is a pundit show. This is not actually a journalist investigation show.
No.
We count on you guys in the chat to
No.
tell us when we're wrong.
Absolutely.
But we usually
all
get,
in
we're
this
pretty
together.
close. I'd say we're like 70-40. 70-40? No, that doesn't work. Exactly. We know enough to be dangerous.
Totally.
Oh God. So a markup of the Marijuana Opportunity Reinvestment Act, which I'm sure has provisions for social justice. If I'm not, am I
Yes.
wrong about that?
No.
I'm assuming.
That's correct.
Now, how does it match up to, say, the Marijuana Justice Act?
I think the Marijuana Justice Act has a lot more to it. The MORE Act is shorter. It's only a
more
few
shorter.
pages. I read the whole thing because I was looking to see if there was anything that said expressly no home grow. Phil Britton might know about this because we've talked about this before when they introduced it in July. And it just says the two things: off the schedule completely,
Right.
and THC off the schedule, and everywhere that it's mentioned, everywhere and all through government, not all through government, through specific spots. I don't think it changes anything in the FFL or anything like that, which it should. I digress. So it's deschedules, and it prioritizes people harmed by the drug war for the reinvestment. That's the two things it does. And the Cory Booker's bill does more than that. Like
More
a bunch
than the
more
more.
stuff. Yeah, way more than the more.
Yeah, the Marijuana Justice Act is their most far-reaching.
Yeah, and
other than-
Tulsi's is
other
the
than-
simplest.
Well, and Bernie doesn't really have. Bernie supports like he's going to do by executive action. He's going to deschedule,
In the first 100 days.
right, and then push for some form of legislation one of these bills, which I'm sure is working its way, would fit the bill. If it were, you also have the States Act, which, is not federal, does nothing on the federal level. So I think that's, as far as progressives go, that's, even though that's been supported it's Elizabeth Warren's bill, along with Cory Gardner. So do what you will with that connection. Also possibly supported by Trump. That he said he would be willing to, he's at least hinted to it, a year ago or so, that he would sign the States Act.
States Act, yeah.
Gardner is in a battle for his Senate seat, big time. Cannabis, of course, is going to be a big issue in Colorado. Hickenlooper was reluctant, to say the least, for even medical expansion in Colorado. As I recall, he vetoed the autism bill.
Yeah, he did.
So he and Cory Gardner are battling with cannabis, which is interesting. The Democrat is probably seemed less of a champion for cannabis, other than Gardner and his states' rights. But I find it interesting, the former Republican progressive Elizabeth Warren with the States Act, states' rights. Now, Tulsi, the other candidate that's got a bill out there that's probably the cleanest, which literally it's just a descheduling. That's all it does. And it has bipartisan support. Not as much as the MORE Act does, I believe. Looks like MORE has 55 co-sponsors. Is that in the House? Is that right? I read in the article. Yes.
Yeah, they're all Democrats.
All
except
Democrats. So Tulsi's bill in the House has some Republican. It's got a Republican co-sponsor and some other Republican support for the ending federal marijuana prohibition act, which hasn't really come up recently with Tulsi. She's got apparently other things she's focusing on. So we do have another prohibitionist that's jumped in the race, of course, Bloomberg. I guess he hasn't formally jumped in the race.
They're talking like he is, so he might as well.
They polled it. He immediately took from the neoliberals, which is like, hey, get some more in the race.
Awesome.
Come on, Hillary,
More.
jump in, Hillary. Come on. And we'll definitely get Bernie. I don't know if he'll make it over the 50%, which could be a screw up thing. I think this is a plan to, if Bernie does get the nomination, he's going to run third party, because he already said he might do that.
Who?
So he's Bloomberg.
Oh, Bloomberg.
Bloomberg said and he's got the money to do it, and he could easily transition to do that. Which, that would basically, let's call him a spoiler, because of course neoliberals would rather have Trump get reelected than Bernie get elected.
Yeah.
So I don't put him against them doing that. Wouldn't be surprised if they did. Somebody did, a third party, not Tulsi. I don't think she will, but one of these guys. And of course, this article you can get to at the Chronicle. Mike Bloomberg and Leafly. Mike Bloomberg's ideas about cannabis legalization are totally bonkers. Of course, he was quoted as saying it's legalization is the stupidest idea ever. Stupidest. Also, and fun fact, everybody, when Mike Bloomberg became mayor, New York City cops made 1,000 cannabis arrests per year. By the time he left office, that number had jumped to 25,000. So I'd say Bloomberg falls into more of the Biden camp, or Biden side, even more so. Even Biden now is talking about expungement. And even though he thinks it still should be a misdemeanor, people should be let out. It's very confused whenever he speaks. And this week was no exception, which you'll see in the afterburn. But Bloomberg, I think, does nothing but help Bernie. If more billionaires jump in, I think the same thing with Duval Patrick. There is, it's not in the Chronicle this week. I didn't put it in really, because who cares about Duval Patrick, quite frankly.
No.
Cannabis
Or
sativa.
Bloomberg.
I'm sure you can inform everyone about Mr. Patrick. In the chat, he screwed up medical cannabis in Massachusetts. Correct me if I'm wrong. Was against decriminalization, and was basically very similar to Elizabeth Warren's position. They voted for it, so what am I going to do? But is now dragged along, and he has no real clear position right now as far as being in the race now. There's no clarification of a new position on that. Biden believes the same as he believed, other than what he doesn't believe anymore. So, because he was locking people up right and left too. At least his legislation was.
He's done a lot of work on the drug side of this.
He's done that's true, Joe. You have done a lot of work on the drug side of this. It's
on the locking people up side.
This is a true statement. Absolutely. But we're hoping that we do see some congressional movement, and Newsweek is pointing out, of course, that new poll this week or last week that came out that essentially 91% of Americans think marijuana should be legalized for either medical or recreational use. 91%. I think bees are the only other thing that get 91%.
Oh, that America. Everybody loves bees?
Yeah. Everybody loves bees and weed. Apparently.
And weed.
Bees and weed.
They are essential to life. I bet people love water. No, I think there's some people who love water less than bees.
What's that? Less than bees? Water? You think people like water more than bees?
Some people they're controversial. There's a controversy over water. Just look at Standing Rock.
Yeah. 91% of Americans think people should have clean water. No, you probably even could say that. I'll bet.
I know. Look, we still have Flint, right? Debbie and Ugly Adams?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Joe Nunya, welcome to the show. Says there's a state Congress critter that puts a bill up about every year to legalize cannabis, and quite literally every critter in the place laughs at him. It becomes a running joke here.
Yeah, well, his time has come.
Upstate Raider, welcome to the show. Mass is blowing it with the vape cartridges. Yeah, there's plenty of that news in the afterburn. Actually, I think there's even a story in the Chronicle, is there not? About the vape ban, which basically they're allowing herb, right?
Yes.
But banning everything else, except I'm confused about the Massachusetts vape ban. I think dry flower vaping is allowed now, still allowed, but oil is not, and they are what do you call it? Quarantining vape carts, oil vape carts.
Which, doesn't make any sense, because the longer that shit stays in the cart,
the more it leaches. Yeah,
so,
well, we'll just quarantine it for 6 months so it gets all full of lead.
It's a bad
idea.
And
then we'll give it back to you to use.
It's gonna be great.
Because that does happen.
It's gonna be
just
great.
saying. Stick to the flower. Stick to the reefer, guys. Stick to the reefer. And we are enjoying some fine sun-grown organic juniper pure flower, $100 for 0.7 gram joint after taxes.
It's 3.5. It was $35 for an eighth, and then there's taxes on top of it. $35 an eighth is not bad.
Except it turns out to be $50 an eighth after tax.
There's that.
But
there's that.
And they wonder why the traditional market is still operating. And will never go away.
No, it'll never go away. Well, you know what? If cannabis were descheduled and they didn't have that draconian bullshit about the firearms thing, maybe the traditional market, and they had pathways for everybody to get into the regulated market, but they're not doing that. Except in Thailand, they are.
Well,
they are.
Let's talk about that story.
I love this story, you guys.
It popped up in Forbes. Sarah Brittany Somerset does great writing over there on the Cannabis beat as well at Forbes. And this story, Thailand will soon allow its citizens to grow cannabis at home to sell to the government. What a novel idea.
Yeah, you guys might remember that everything changed for Thailand in March when the new party was voted in. And Thailand got medicinal, and they used the crops that were confiscated, and they made it into oil. They cleared them for pesticides and mold and all that.
Great idea number one.
Genius. We need to go talk to these people, right? And then this morning I wake up and bang! This next amazing story of how you'll be allowed to grow 6 plants and you can sell them back to the government and the government will turn your plants into cannabis oil. And you can go to the university for free to learn how to grow it.
So it looks like they have done a couple of things. And just the interesting twist, before I get into the benefits of what this would you imagine what this would mean for, like, say, the United States. They have the little twist on this is that they've created a what do you call it, a majority government in Parliament on this issue. They ran on home grow with the idea that you would be able to sell it back to the government, your excess cannabis or whatever you wanted to of your 6 plants. It was in their platform, in their political platform.
Yeah.
And they got elected, and they were able to create a majority ruling government under this idea. And this is why these were what? How the hell
in Thailand?
How the hell do these laws go forward in Thailand?
In Thailand, I'm like, it's almost like they woke up one morning and changed their whole mind, and that's what happened.
And that's what happened. They got all in.
People
They're all
voted in politicians who were all about it, unashamed. I think that people living in communities that are getting it wrong, even California, my friends in the Emerald Triangle, my grower friends, you guys got to run for office. Somebody's got to run for office. Hey, guess what? I hate to say it, but one of the consequences of the fuck up in the California onboarding is going to be that a bunch of people are going to be put out of business.
Well,
another one of the stories in the Chronicle, I think you're about to pull it up.
I am.
Okay.
And this is coming from a red-headed black belt.
Almost like we wrote this.
Local independent news source up in Humboldt County. Late last week, around 470 Humboldt landowners got the, quote, "We see you're growing" letters from the county.
That's not creepy. No, not creepy at all.
And it's interesting, the timing, of course, of the letters being right at the end of growing season, right at harvest time. So they're not actually going to enforce anything because there's no more plants.
Right. They're just saying, don't do it again.
But they've basically put these farmers on notice that says, look, we know what you're doing, and don't do it next year, essentially.
Become compliant. By the end of the year, apply for your tiny grow license.
That's right.
3,000 square feet, 6,000 square feet, blah, blah. It's a 2-page application. They make it sound like, oh, it's so easy. It's just 2 pages.
This is just
no big
this
deal.
is just a convenience letter to say, hey, listen, according to our satellite information
that we're surveilling you with
and drones, you've got a bunch of cannabis plants.
Oh, God.
They're not hemp plants because you haven't registered them as hemp plants. So you've got some cannabis plants there. So you probably looks like you want to get a license. You want to get legal, don't you? Don't you? You might want to go down there and get yourself a license. Pay that $250,000 or whatever it's going to take. Techno Biscuit, I don't know. Did you just send the email? I don't know. I did not. Was today? Are you talking to me? Are you talking to us? Hey, must be. I look down into the chat and I sometimes see things and I'm like, we will check. But if it's since I started the show, no.
So 470 families, somebody in that group has got to be ready to run for office.
Well, listen, this is legal California, guys. And legal is a code word for tax and regulate. Not legal, yes. Legal is code word for not legal. Legal is code word for you pay to play. And
if anybody doesn't like it, you're going to have to stop.
Now, just to the absurdity of what's going on here in California, in Canada, and wherever else this is going on, everywhere that they're doing fake legalization, Thailand has, done 2 things. It's for those that are trafficking it, and they're busting them for breaking those laws. They're converting all of that. They're not wasting any of that medicine. They're testing it and using it in their universal
oil.
health care system.
That's right, that they give to people for free.
They give to people for free.
Oh, yeah, and that's the other thing. Not only will they buy the cannabis that you grow in your yard for more than you would make in a year doing other work in Thailand. The average salary of people in Thailand is $8,200 a year, gross income, and they want to pay people around $13,000 a year for their 6 plants.
What?
Yeah.
So wait, I'm sorry. Did you just? I'm sorry. Did Andrew Yang run for president in
Thailand?
In Thailand? Because
No, but
it
this
sounds
guy-
like you're giving cannabis growers $1,000 a month for
Right?
for their
For
excess
growing weed.
for their excess cannabis that they're growing from their 6 big ones.
And so, but of
Which I'm
course,
sure you can
their
probably grow some
cannabis
big
has
ones
to
in
be
Thailand.
a certain quality and all the things. It has to meet their specifications, yada yada.
So now they have not only converting illicit cannabis being trafficked to medicine, they're creating a new income source for the people who use their own and grow their own cannabis for consumption or their use for medicine, and being able to a guaranteed buyback of excessive plants. So what that does, it keeps it out of the traditional market,
That's right.
if you will.
That's right. Well, it's a specific strain.
Brilliant.
I'm pretty sure they want this 1-to-1 strain,
Right.
and then they make it into oil, and then they distribute it from the hospital, and it's free.
I'd be happy to grow a 1-to-1 strain
Yeah.
and sell. Renewing your passport. 6 plants for $13,000. I'm renewing my passport. Right?
Each plant is
Oh.
$2,225.
Go grow some Harley Sue. Take some Harlequin Tsunami
That's
and,
awesome,
and
Phil.
grow 6 giant.
Phil, let's go, buddy. Forge ahead. We'll meet you there.
It just blows my mind. And then here we are sending letters to growers in California, growing some of the most amazing cannabis in the world, to cease and desist. Essentially, we're coming to get you next time. And don't worry, we're not going to use any of that medicine for veterans or anybody else who needs it. We're going to destroy it. And and if it's legal hemp, forget it, because it can still smells like marijuana. If it smells like it, it is it. Crazy. The craziness. People, I don't know. It's, there's a lot of crazy going on in the world right now and in this country. But there's this, I think this craziness is waking some people up in the cannabis and with regards to mainstream perception of this plant.
Oh, yeah.
And the craziness that has been created by
freaking people
the
out.
federal government.
Oh,
and,
people are freaking out.
and people like Joe Biden and Bloomberg
Yeah.
and non-progressives.
Well, not non-progressives. How about all the farmers who just invested a whole bunch of money and now what? The what?
Oh, what do you
What
mean?
rules?
You mean
Are
we're
you
just
nuts?
gonna we reported on this last week, of course, because it just came out last week, was the USDA hemp rules that came out from the since the Farm Bill was passed. They said essentially the USDA is in charge of the growing, and they're going to set up the rules for that along with the states. The FDA is going to control the derivatives of this plant that are used for consumption in some form, and go forth and create this new industry. And what did the USDA do? Like we reported? Oh, they just came up with another freaking arbitrary rule. That's what they did. An arbitrary rule that kneecapped an entire industry. Every new CBD cannabis, or rather hemp farmer, looked at these new rules and lost their shit.
Most of them are not progressives.
Exactly, exactly. I'm sure the thanks again to Dr. Berry and the Levy brothers from New York, talking about their hemp problems, and of course that Vermont farm might be a little concerned about these new rules, as are all the farmers of hemp across the country. And this from Hemp Industry Daily, an offshoot of Marijuana Business Daily. They just suffocated the farmers. Quote, proposed THC testing for hemp sparks industry backlash. just reading here from it. Farmers and ancillary hemp businesses are not happy with the THC testing standards outlined within the U.S. Department of Agriculture interim federal rules. Interim, that's a good word, for hemp production. The rules require that hemp crops do not exceed 0.3 total THC, which is derived from the sum of Delta-9 and THCA content on a dry weight basis. Crops testing higher than 0.3 THC total will have a small margin of error. They'd say it's 0.5, a measurement of uncertainty. Depending on the lab used for testing, hemp crops must test within the measure of uncertainty to be considered acceptable, which is between, according to 0.3 to 0.5. It says farmers wouldn't be considered in negligent violation unless their crops test above 0.5 THC, meaning they may not be prosecuted with a drug crime. However, crops that test at 0.3 to 0.5 THC would be subject to disposal.
Jesus.
So over 0.5,
Jesus
you're going
Christ.
to jail.
Oh my God. That's like playing Russian roulette with your plants.
And between 0.3 and 0.5, you got to destroy it.
So again, I think this is
Awesome.
their way of slowing the rollout. Just like Missouri with their, you can't pay your stuff in cash.
You can't, you
but
can't
you
pay your
can't
taxes
get
in
a
cash.
bank either. It's their way of dragging it out and making it hard to do or impossible.
Yes, and Joe Nunya, yes, it's 0.3, not 0.03. It's 0.3. Is just an arbitrary number some loon pulled out of his ass. Arse. Yes, that's true as well. The 0.3 number is completely arbitrary to begin with. And so it's like a weird game of telephone where they're just, let's decide, let's give them 0.2 points of variation before we call them a felon. Before we call
Jesus
them
Christ.
you have 10,000 acres, you have 5,000 acres of marijuana now.
Oh my God.
You're a narco kingpin at 0.5, over 0.5. So I guess it's a little ambiguous. You may not be prosecuted if you can prove you were in good intention. You know what I'm saying? Otherwise, we don't like it. You're going to go down. You're going to go down. So the USDA is taking comments, which I'm sure there's probably many, many, many more comments than there were for the last time the FDA and such were taking comments on CBD. There were, I think, Tom Angel reported 500 within the first couple of days.
Oh, we got to do more than that.
So I don't know what the number is now.
I expect there to be 531.
At least. What? You talking to me?
I'm talking to all of you.
You pointing at me? Oh, you're pointing at the camera. Okay. They're pointing at me. What? Because we want to grow hemp microgreens.
Yeah.
That's what we want to grow.
That'd be rad. But
Yeah.
I don't
So
think
if anybody
those will
knows
test.
about that, Techno Biscuit, I will check my email
Your
as we go into the
DC420 LA
afterburn and see what we got. We'd love to share whatever, of course, you share with us. And welcome to the show. Tyranny, Gypsy Lady Lee. That is it. Gypsy Jilly Love poisoning us, then denying health care or cannabis is murder. Yes,
Yeah.
they've been. What's a crime? The crime about this plant is that it's been held back from us, as O'Shaughnessy's makes clear in this quoting from the LaGuardia Committee report. What was going on back in the 30s was clearly not a problem and not a social ill. It was not a gateway drug, Joe Biden, based on the 5-year investigation at the very beginning. And of course, this report was immediately, we don't want that. We don't want that report. I'm going to hide this one. So that's a good read. If you guys, I will put the link in the description of the video, but this O'Shaughnessy's online, marijuana use in New York in the 1930s. T-pads, man. This is a T-pad is a room or an apartment in which people gather to smoke marijuana. The majority of such places are located in the Harlem district. It's our impression that the landlord, the agent, the superintendent, or the janitor is aware of the purposes for which the premises are rented. The tea-pad is furnished according to the clientele it expects to serve. Usually each tea-pad is comfortable furniture, a radio, Victrola, or more, and in most instances, a rented Nickelodeon. The lighting is more or less uniformly dim, with blue predominating, and incense is considered part of the furnishings. The walls are frequently decorated with pictures of nude subjects suggesting of perverted sexual practices. The furnishes, as described, are
Some of them were brothels.
Some were brothels, yeah. But there were like 500 of them in Harlem, and along with 500 independent peddlers of the tea. And
that would be your guy.
And it's like, and they talk about how you knew when you were too high and you stopped smoking. That's the way they rolled. It never, you knew when you got too high, you got high enough. You did it every day, and you knew exactly how high you could get. Cigarettes were 25 cents, sometimes up to $1 for the good stuff. And it's just fascinating how inconsequential and how non-destructive this was, even in the 30s. And ultimately, it just became more and more demonized, and just the absurdity, like the 0.3 classification of hemp, which came along down the road as well. But now it's legal, right? Yeah, not so much. Not so much. Even with these new ridiculous rules that are being proposed, it's across the country. These farmers are trying to grow this plant, and some are running into more problems than even cannabis farmers are under legalization efforts, which is really crazy. It's nuts. So Thailand doing it right, California not so much. Illinois did a lottery this month. Lotteries work out great, by the way. Not always the best way to do cannabis licenses. Many companies fail because they're not ready to do it. They just get in and say, "Okay, we'll figure it out after we get the lottery, win the lottery."
Well,
because obviously, I mean, how much preparation could these companies have had to
I
set up
think
their
they
lottery?
have to have like a business plan and stuff.
Oh yeah, that's right. Well, you can buy those. Those are easy. Those come a dime a dozen now. You can buy a cannabis business plan.
That's true.
No problem.
That's true. That's what we're trying to do.
That's what I wanted to say with these poor hemp farmers. Not only are the ambiguous laws with trying to transport this legal now plant because of flummoxed law enforcement. We've talked about this before since day one of this this show, because we've talked about hemp and the coming legalization and prior legalization through the 2014 Farm Bill. Cross-pollination could cost marijuana farmers several $1,000s as hemp production expands nationwide. In Marijuana Business Daily, not the Hemp Daily. Over here, the marijuana farmers are being screwed by the outdoor hemp farmers. And it turns out it doesn't even matter how hard you try. You're going to get cross-pollination.
That's going to drive cannabis indoors. Because certainly hemp isn't going to go indoors. Hemp is the large crop that's used for every single thing. So cannabis is going to get driven indoors. Savor the days of outdoor cannabis, yo.
Yeah, I mean, this is outdoor or sun-grown cannabis is one of the major selling points of California cannabis, and all these brands are literally latching their entire existence on organic sun-grown cannabis from the Emerald Triangle. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what they're going to do with regards to trying to keep. How do you do it? How do you do it? The winds, man. The winds are going to take this stuff. And from this article, Washington State is a case in point. In April, Governor Inslee signed Senate Bill 5276 in a law opening the state up to hemp production in response to the 2018 Farm Bill, in part by removing the previous 4-mile buffer between outdoor marijuana grows and hemp farms. At least one marijuana farmer has experienced firsthand the consequences of this change in the law. Quote, "We took a big hit," said Robert Morf, who owns and operates Cheshire Creek, an outdoor marijuana cultivation operation in Waterville, Washington. He estimates he'll lose about $40,000 this year after his mid-sized 600-plant farm was cross-pollinated by pollen from the male plants he said came from a neighboring hemp grower. So they got rid of, in Washington, they got rid of a 4-mile barrier, and boom, lo and behold. It might even be, this might be a conspiracy to get rid of cannabis growing, marijuana growing.
Well, that would be the smart thing. I mean, if they really wanted to get rid of, to really disrupt the market.
I mean, you can certainly grow more cannabis indoors, but it's more resource heavy. You know, you have more control, sure, but you know, organic, there's nothing like organic sun-grown cannabis. There is really a difference. And
you can taste the sun.
I don't know what it is, but it tastes fresher. You can taste
the fresh air. I don't
all
know.
the different terpenes better.
Maybe not. Indoor. Maybe it's just in my head.
Maybe
if you did a taste test side by side, I wouldn't be able to tell at all.
Yeah, it's like it's like what do you like, an indica or sativa? Paul Stamets said to Joe Rogan, I don't know. whatever. I go to sleep. Puts me to sleep. Jilly Love, hemp is banned here in southern Humboldt. Up north it's okay. Interesting. So we have local bans happening with regards to probably a pretty heavy duty, you know, cannabis growing lobby.
Yeah.
Try to keep hemp out. And why not? Why not? That's a good idea.
Designate areas where it should be.
You know, some desert areas would be more prevalent, better off for hemp. You know, maybe out there in Adelanto, you know, along the, you know, in those areas where
outdoors in Adelanto.
Well, I think for hemp you might be able to for tall industrial hemp.
It's hot as like the Dickens. I don't think so.
Well, I don't know. I don't know.
I think it's way too hot.
But there are certain, you know, you can, depending upon the strain, you can find strains that grow better in different. That's what the hemp farmers are saying in all these news stories.
I've got a question about this Humboldt Canadian and Jilly Love.
Yeah.
And any others. Maybe Phil knows too. When the female plants turn hermaphrodite, does that make them ineffective? What happens? Why is it bad? They'll be seedy, so there'll be seeds. Will there be seeds? What happens? What happens? Tell me in the chat.
Hermaphrodite, maybe some of the buds have seeds, and maybe some of the buds don't. Or both, male and females. That's what that means, right? Or did they turn all male when they go hermaphrodite?
Seeds in their buds. Does it do anything else to them? So you have to pick out the seeds.
You get fewer cannabinoids too. You get lower levels of CBD, and you get lower levels of, because all of the nutrients get forced into the seed as opposed to the flower. Oh. So that's the problem. Is you don't get the strong cannabinoid profile in the seed in the flower, because it's all the energy is going into the seeds. I think it's my.
Oh, just a few seeds.
For hermaphrodites. Maybe.
Yeah. Okay, well,
and listen, you know, you need seeds to grow to start sometimes.
Yeah, it could be worse. You kind of feel like, oh, yay, I got a seed.
Yeah, sometimes it's like, oh my God, look, I found a seed in my bud. I can grow something.
I can grow something. Yeah,
Johnny Appleseed, spread it.
Rad.
So, you know, you just got to keep them in check. You don't want them to, because, you know, that is where you get the most high quality. You need the female flower. You need that. That's where the good stuff is. You want to grow.
I don't know, but with descheduling, we'll be able to study all this stuff. It's a very exciting time.
You know, that seems to be the big answer for everybody. It clears up the veterans problem. It clears up the gun problem. It clears up the housing problem. It clears up all of the issues with regards to federal funding in nursing homes,
and
hospitals, doctors, protection of doctors. These are all energies that could be focused on Washington.
Yeah. Lifts the chains.
To get the plant off of the schedule, so that we can actually allow people to use it, pay for it, not keep thousands of dollars in their safe. Hermaphrodites, Phil Britton.
Hermaphrodite seed is far more likely to create another hermaphrodite from Joe Nunya.
That makes sense.
And you were saying?
Phil Britton says, hermaphrodites have both male-female characteristics. Pull cut off the males. Many buds will throw seeds, but potency in the female bud is still high. So you cut off the male buds. How do you, oh God, I barely, listen. Oh, hey, you see those?
Hey, look at the jars, you guys. Dave harvested. We harvested. I was at work. Turn it around, not the label side.
We've got curing going on.
We're curing.
We've got curing going on.
That's why we bought these pre-rolls. Because we're curing.
Our modest harvest that we fought off powdery mildew with milk and hydrogen peroxide.
The landlady who wanted us to drown them in the bathtub.
To kill them. She literally lost her mind. I thought she was going to have a stroke over our 7 plants.
She was pretty upset. I hope she doesn't have a stroke.
I hope so. I hope not either. But cannabis does cause psychosis in people that have been propagandized for their entire lives when they see the plant or smell the plant. Even with hemp, you think growing hemp is going to protect you from those crazies that smell the plant? Guess what? It smells the same too. It looks the same and it smells the same.
Totally smells the same.
So
everybody's freaking out over the smell.
It's I'm telling you, listen, cannabis is legal in California as long as people don't see it, smell it, hear it, or taste it. Then it's legal. So that's what I say. Phil Britton, one should always try to keep seeds for the next year. So be grateful you get some seeded buds.
Yeah.
Why not? You need them, right?
I remember when I was a kid rolling joints for my family's friends and the family. I remember breaking up the cannabis and shaking it on a paper and shaking the seeds out. The seeds would all roll down.
Oh, yeah.
There was always seeds. Not a lot, but some.
That was, I don't think since we've been together, we've ever had that experience.
Seeds?
I mean, we've always had access to some kind of quality cannabis, no matter where we've lived. And oftentimes other people's pot. Never, we never, for a long time, we never had to even pay for it when we were like,
because we didn't have any money.
We didn't have any money. That's right. We didn't have any money. We were broke. We were broke. We were dependent upon the kindness of cannabis strangers.
The cannabis guys.
Cannabis fam in Hawaii. And there are many in Hawaii, actually.
It was great.
That are providers to folks.
Never wanting for cannabis.
That's true. We have never been one. It's, it's true. We are been cannabis rich our entire life together. So we benefit from that as well. In our 26 years of survival. How do you do it? No kids and copious amounts of cannabis.
Loads of weed. Yeah.
And avoidance of the news in recent years.
Well, we need to go a little back stronger on that. It's too much for me.
It's overwhelming at this point. Too much going on.
It's too much for me. I can't handle
it. Let's stick to the cannabis news. What else is going on in the cannabis news, Chela, as we come up on our first hour? Of course, we've talked politics. All of the candidates got on the Veterans Day train with regards to, many of them anyway, with regards to cannabis, part of Bernie's Veterans plan, comprehensive plan, making sure veterans have access and doctors can recommend it. The prohibitionists, of course, slow to the party, many not changing their original stances. Adult use coming to Michigan December 1st now, guys. Now there's a way that an interesting way that they're doing it in Michigan. They are now going to allow the provisioners of the medical cannabis to provide recreational cannabis. What a novel idea. Because I don't know about you, but I find it difficult to tell the difference between medical and recreational cannabis.
Less taxes.
Oh, that's what it is.
Fewer taxes. I'm sorry.
Fewer taxes. Brother John. Welcome to the show. Summer BC and Mike 88 also in the show, joining in as we wrap up our first hour talking about news. So December 1st, Michiganites, looks like you're going to be able to buy recreational cannabis in 2019, guys. No waiting to 2020. It's going to happen within the month in Michigan at provisioning centers, being able to provide that's smart way to go. They should also just give all of those people, just give them all licenses. They should have done that in California. We had a perfectly respectable, semi respectable system going in California in many localities. They should have just given everybody a license and told them to get on the testing board, and then you would have had a bunch of people. You would have had enough supply. You would have had enough dispensaries for the amount of population in Los Angeles, particularly, but also in other different localities. And you actually would be getting people out of the traditional market, because many of those shops have gone now to become the traditional market again, and they're trying to knock them off like whack-a-moles, like they did back in the day. And so you could have avoided this whole problem. Just done de facto licensing.
It's not too late. It's not too late. Listen, people in Humboldt, people in different areas that are being impacted by this crazy town nonsense need to run for office, and they need to run on the platform that they're going to straighten out this bullshit. It's that simple. They need to run on the idea that they're going to propose amendments to Prop 64 to make it better. I know that it's possible because there are things like the Emerald Cup that happen where lots of people come together, and there's a section of judging that's home grow from the Emerald Cup.
Right.
That keeps hope alive for small growers, for the possibility of Thailand here.
Well, that's, Thailand is an inspiration in that these politicians literally got into office on these cannabis promises. So why not use that here?
In Thailand,
91% of the United States, people in the United States, think some form of legal cannabis is appropriate.
Yeah.
So we can certainly change these rules in this nascent industry. We're going to be stumbling. It's just the beginning.
It is.
The numbers are pretty crazy that are coming out of speculators and the CBD, D, whatever it's called. Kamala calls them CBD, I don't know what it was called. But there's going to be a lot of money there. And the Fazul has been exposed with hemp. And the Fazul of these politicians that are like, oh, we're all for hemp. It's the same plant. Boehner. It's cross plant. You're talking about which bees and weed. Then they're all hypocrites. All of these prohibitionists that were locking people up, that were pretending not to lock people up, pretending to be progressive, but still locking people up. Now, whether it's Howard Dean, Antonio Villaraigosa on MedMen, Howard Dean on Tilray, John Boehner on Acreage Holdings. Who else? There's another GOP guy just got on it somewhere. And it's in Canada. It's the same thing. You've got law enforcement and politicians all making profits. This is why Bernie's plan is very exciting, because he's going to come up with some way to slow down big cannabis, which, you'd think prohibitionist groups like SAM might be on board. They might want to support Bernie's plan that's going to try to slow that down and keep big tobacco out of cannabis. So, this is a crossover issue.
I don't know if Sam's ever going to support Bernie.
Well, I'm just saying. The thing is, the descheduling is they are pushing decriminalization because they've lost on the harm.
Yeah.
The science is they can't.
They can't beat the science.
They can't beat the science. It's never killed anybody. Doesn't cause cancer.
Mm-hmm.
All of this stuff. The vaping thing is a completely different story.
Yeah.
There's nothing to do with THC.
No, just greed.
Just greed. That's right.
We have some homework.
We do. We do?
Yes. We must, if we have not already done it, write our notes to the FDA. And,
USDA?
Yeah, USDA.
Yeah, USDA.
And the other one was what we were just talking about.
Well, while you're trying to remember that, I will say we will be at the Emerald Cup this year.
We will.
This is the Bay Area Reporter. Bay Area connoisseur. Cannabis lovers anticipate Emerald Cup. It was a great time last year.
Oh, call your representatives, because this week they're going to be talking about the MORE Act.
The MORE Act.
Make sure that they understand that home grow is mandatory.
And we should let's I'm going to read the actual
Make
MORE
that
Act
part
now
of
that
the
it's
markup.
now that it's going to get marked up, and marked up means you can have amendments. That's what it means. You can put forth amendments, so you can tell your representative that, hey, this bill is going to be coming up for markup in committee, and if they're on that committee, which is what committee is it? Do we know? We know. We should know. It's I think that's Rules Committee. That's Nadler, right? It's
Yeah, Nadler.
Rules Committee.
It's Nadler's thing, yeah, in his committee, yep.
So if they're on that committee, they can bring up amendments, and home grow should be part of it. Unlike in Florida, where apparently it looks like what's going to end up on the ballot, or at least is in the lead right now, is the MedMen and corporate cannabis supported ballot initiative that is going forward in Florida. That might end up there, Make It Legal Florida, which is the no home grow law. And if it's no home grow, it's no go. It ain't legal. Listen, if you can't grow the plant in your backyard, even though you can here technically.
No,
but
not
you
if
can't.
somebody doesn't want you to.
But not if somebody that doesn't want you to can see it, smell it, or hear it. Then you can grow or put it in your damn closet. And you can't smoke it, although in some cities now you can. But it's it's an exciting time in cannabis, and this is historic. It's going to be another historic debate on the floor in this madness. Who thought they would have time for cannabis in this craziness that's happening up in Congress this week? Ellen Blasey, welcome to the show. Hello in Poughkeepsie, New York. Hello to all of our viewers from wherever you are. Vegan Metro in Nevada, Jilly Love in Northern California, Upstate Raider, New York, or Mass, Cannabis Sativa in Mass. I know that. We are about to go into the afterburn, guys. We've got stories from all around those areas. We are going to go into the afterburn where we hotbox the mainstream media in the MST 420 theater with blunt commentary on the coverage of marijuana from coast to coast with your hosts, Al Toker and Coach Chela. I haven't come up with an afterburn name for you yet.
No, I haven't.
You haven't. But a lot of stuff going on this week. Talk to give your comments to the USDA. Tell your reps about the MORE Act. Watch for the hearings on probably Wednesday. Historic hearings this week. We'll be reporting on them next week. Let's get into the afterburn, guys. Hit that thumbs up, subscribe, get notifications, ring that bell. We're multi-streaming on Facebook, Twitch, DLive, Periscope, and of course here on YouTube. And we will be right back in 2 minutes with the afterburn. Thanks for watching, guys. Free the plant, free the people. Pot for peace.